Hey there, Miss Wyatt here, and today I want to talk about insecurity and how it can affect relationships. Um, so, kind of ahead, I have quite a few insecurities. I am insecurity about my abilities, insecure about my looks. You can generally say I'm insecure about everything I like, just everything about myself. And it tends to affect how I interact with a lot of people, especially people I believe are better than me, whether that's um, realistic or not. It's I tend to get valid. I tend to want to be validated a lot, uh, and for me, especially like when I get into like crushes and stuff, I'm always like trying to figure out like am I good enough for whoever I feel like I would want to get into a relationship with? And it's not just down to relationships, it's also with friendships. Like, I know with a lot of my friends, the biggest question I always ask them is, am I am I giving enough into this friendship that my friendship is worth having? I'm always wondering whether are people what reason do people keep me around? If that makes sense. It's those ones of I don't I'm not accepting of myself my worth that I feel a lot of other people feel the same way about myself, about me, the same way I feel about myself, if that makes sense. It's it's like a self-perpetuating cycle of because I don't think I'm worth a lot. I feel like other people think I'm not worth a lot, and because of that, um, even if people tell me I'm worth a lot, I'm in my head I'm thinking, well, they're just saying that just because they don't want me to, to feel bad. And when you think about it that way, it's kind of a mess because you keep wondering whether um, I keep wondering whether it's like, am I just overthinking stuff? And if I'm overthinking stuff, when did I start thinking like this? At least with my looks, I know when it started. I used to be obese when I was younger, and even after I lost weight, I still had that mentality from when I was fat. So it kind of stuck with me till this day, and I guess that's why I'm very insecure about how I look. And then with my abilities, I think it's also down to like when teachers tell you you're not living up to you're not using your full potential, you're not using all your potential. I kind of was like, I mean, if I'm doing badly, then that just must mean that I don't have that ability that you say I have. And if I have that ability, then why do people keep saying I have that ability? And it's even trickled into like my professional life. One of the reasons why I dropped out of university was because I was like, 5 years, I was just like, I don't belong here. Yes, I might have gotten good grades, but at the end of the day, I'm like, it's imposter syndrome, I guess. It's basically just imposter syndrome. And even for like the first 1 2 years, I was doing well. My grades quickly started dropping, and that imposter syndrome just became, it was like the more I failed classes, the more my GPA dropped. It's like, yeah, like I think it was, what's the word I'm looking for? Reinforcing the notion I've had about myself for years. And even as I dropped out and started being a full-time writer, but started to be a full-time blogger, um, and even when I started thinking about doing music full-time, um, I looked at my work. I used to compare. Not even used to. Even to this day I still compare myself, my like what I do, to others, and I always looked at my work like, Jesus Christ, this is bad. Oh my, like, oh no, this is horrendous. Why do I even put these things out? Um, Even like it's the same thing with my writing. It's the same thing with my blogs. It's the same thing with my poetry. Even with my music, like between like my covers and just the lyrics I write, I'm just like, this is absolutely nonsense. And I think for me, I I end up self sabotaging myself to the point where I'm just like, you know what? It won't hurt to do anything, because if you don't put yourself out there, then nobody will tell you your stuff is bad, because how can you critique something that's not out there? And it's something with relationships. For me, it's always been like, why put myself out there? People are just going to leave anyway, so why not give people that opportunity to not leave? Why give the people opportunity to leave when you can just be like by yourself and just sit there and just be like, you know just, just isolate yourself. Like, that's what I used to do. And I know I don't take criticism very well. I'm actually one of the worst people to take criticism, but at the same time, um, I do like a lot of feedback, especially from people I'm very close to. So and I do tend to get very overbearing with it, because I'll just like, on a regular basis, I'll be like, what do you think of me now? What do you think of me? Have I upset you? Have I made you mad? It's like none, like clockwork. I'll just be like, I'm so insecure with who I am and the kind of value I add to society, that I constantly need that reinforced notion of like, at least someone else is saying what in me, whether I believe it or not. Even is a story for another day. Even though most of the time I don't, and that's again not from like me just being told, you're not living up to your full potential. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. And I guess with my ADHD and bipolar, there's some things I just cannot do, and I think they've just like, having ADHD, bipolar, anxiety, reaction sensitivity, and put on that, and then on just put like the insecurity right on top of it. I think it was a recipe. I noticed that it was a recipe for um, for disaster, because I'd either A, become overwhelming to people who are close to me, or B, self-destruct myself to a point where I just push everyone who tries to help me away. And it honestly does not get, it can be very uh, debilitating. I think that's why a lot of us are suggested with like stuff like therapy and coaching and all that stuff, because you're like, people are like, yeah, we cannot deal with this, we cannot deal with like all of that. And I think for me, that's why I struggle with opening up about my struggle. That's why I struggle about opening up about my insecurities. That's why I struggle up opening up about my feelings, like my emotions. Like, I'd rather bottle it up and have others not notice them, or hopefully not notice them, because apparently I'm told like I'm open book. People notice like when shit is hitting their fan. But in my head, I like to pretend like you know, they can't notice it. So I try to do that, and yeah, so it gets to a point where my insecurity dictates how I interact with people, especially for example, like people who I think are either more talented than me, smarter than me, or better looking than me. And for those who know me, that's like 90% of the people I interact with. Actually, not even 90%, like 100% of the people I interact with fall into either one or all of those, one or more of those, categories. And it just, it's, it's kind of a shame because I feel like if I wasn't so insecure, I would have more to offer society, but because a lot of my actions are dictated by my insecurity, it's kind of out in the open that I it's kind of a toss up, not even out in the open, it's kind of a toss up of what I do. And it's a work in progress. Like, I wouldn't say um, it's something that I'll solve overnight, but at the same time, it is definitely a work in progress. I'm definitely not the same person I was yesterday. Well, okay, no. Uh, I'm definitely the same person I was yesterday because right now, I have a particularly bad flare up of my insecurity, and yeah, even recording this video was a struggle for me because, again, I'm very insecure about how I look. So sitting in front of a camera and tell putting all of this in front of a camera is just it was hard to do, but at the same time, it's um one of the things I like working over my insecurities is just getting it over with, like just doing it, and hoping that not like my what I think about myself is not perpetuated by a majority of the people. So that's one of the reasons why this video took so long to do. Um, the same time, it's I'm definitely not the same person I was like in high school, because in high school I was a whole lot more insecure. I was a lot more reserved. I wouldn't have even thought about doing this, like putting myself on the internet and just being like, yeah, this is how I feel, this is what I'm like, this is, all this, like just put all this out there. So at the end of the day, I'm definitely not the same person I was, but I'm definitely a work in progress. And when it comes to insecurities, I think that's the most you can ask of someone, is that they are at least working on themselves, even if the steps that they're taking are not very obvious to you at the moment. You know, sometimes people sharing about the things they're struggling with can be a struggle, and sometimes, especially with insecurities, and especially when people consider like what your insecurities are being overblown, it can be very hard for them to share like the steps that you're taking. And for me, I think that's what a lot of it is. And I think for me, that's why I started my blog, because I felt like we need to let people know that sometimes your insecurities are not overblown. Sometimes you just need that tiny nudge forward. So I think that's all I wanted to talk about today. Thanks for listening to me. Hopefully, um, you learned something new. Hopefully, you learned, I helped you process some things. And if you like what I'm talking about, you can always subscribe. I'll leave some links in the description for how you can support me if you feel like you want to do that. And I want to give a special shout out to Diana for buying the recording equipment I'm currently using. I am extremely grateful for that, and I'll also leave her Twitter in the description. Uh, so go show her some love. So again, thanks and goodbye until next time.